Hello and welcome back to a new video. In this video, we are going to learn about JWT Authentication, how to implement JWT Authentication in our Ktor server so we can use a token instead of just relying on sending our username and password each and every time we make a request to a protected endpoint. So in the last video, we've implemented basic authentication in our Ktor server, and we are able to protect specific endpoints using basic authentication. Now, the way basic authentication works is that you need to send the username and the password in the request headers when you make a request to a protected endpoint. So say, for example, you want to add a new fruit, for example, in our fruit server, you need to attach your username and password in the headers of that request. So another popular way of authenticating your users is using tokens, and we can do that using JWT Authentication here, and we are going to use this type of tokens called bearer tokens, which is a very popular way to authenticate users. So let's get started here in IntelliJ. So there are different ways to sign your token when you generate the token for user. It's important to talk about this now because there's some differences between different ways. So the way we are going to sign our tokens is using the HMAC or HMAC algorithm, which uses a shared secret between the client and the server. And you can use a different method called the RSA, which uses a public and a private key. But here in this video, we are going to use the HMAC for now, and we might implement the RSA1 in a different video. So let me know if you're interested in that. But yeah, so let's get started here. In our project, I'm going to go to resources and the application.yaml file. You might have a different file. I think it's called a hookon file. But the default configuration is YAML. So if you made the project recently, you are going to have a YAML file. So as you can see, we have this JWT block here added for us by the wizard because we've added the JWT plugin. But you can add this code manually, no worries. This is just some configuration for the JWT plugin to add some information to the token when we verify or when we create a new token. And I like to have these configurations here in my configuration files, for example, such as this application.yaml file, instead of hard coding them in my code, in my functions. So I'm going to change these values here, these default values. So for example, the domain, let's do localhost for now because we don't have a domain. Or actually, let me just use my domain, just like that. And for the audience, let me say, for example, fruit server admins. And for the realm, let's just say fruit server. And of course, since we are going to use the HMAC algorithm, we need a shared secret. So I'm also going to define this secret here. So I'm going to say secret, and here we can say anything. This is a secret. Okay. So we've defined all the values that we need. So let's go to the security KT file, which has the configuration to authentication related functions on our server. And there is this block of code that we've commented from the previous video because it was a JWT related authentication and we were not interested at it at that time. So I'm going to uncomment this and just take a look at the code here. So we have some information hard coded here, and let's change that. So we want to read these values from the application.yaml file. So to access these values, we need to say JWT config environment config.config JWT, just like that. So this is basically referencing to the JWT part of the configuration file. So basically we are referencing this, and then we are going to read the values under JWT. So for audience, for example, we can say not environment, but JWT config property and audience, yeah, just like that, and to string. And same thing for the domain. So let's copy this. Same thing for the realm, same thing for the secrets. So this one is domain, realm, and secrets here. So we are reading all the values. Okay, good. Now here in the JWT block, we have this verifier function, which provides a way to verify the token and the signature of the token. And we have this validate block, which we can use to add some extra validation to validate our token. So for example, if you want to check for specific usernames, or if you want to check if the token has a specific claim, you can do different stuff to add some extra validation here. But this configuration is enough for us to start. So let's go to the user routes, because now we want to respond with a token if the user logs in with the correct username and password. So here, as you can see in the login endpoint, instead of replying with login was successful, we want to reply with a token. So after we make sure that the credentials are correct, we want to create our token. So I'm going to say val token jwt.create with issuer, and we are going to attach the issuer here. And here we don't have access to all of the JWT properties that we've defined. So let's go to the security Ktor file and copy all of these properties and paste them here outside of the post block, because that will give us an error if we try to put them here. So here we can say JWT domain, and with audience we can say JWT audience with claim, and a claim is a specific value that we want to attach to this token. So for example, if you want to have the username of the current user, we can have that in the token, so we can extract it later when we make requests and attach this token. So the name of the claim is going to be username, and the value is going to be account request.username, which is the same as the one we see here. And last thing is expires at. So we define when this token expires, and we can attach a Java time instant, I guess here, yes, and we can also attach a Java datetime or Java date, but I like to use the clock from the Kotlin X library. So let me just show you. I'm going to say expires at equals clock from Kotlin X datetime dot system dot now, and then plus, and this now gives us the time right now, and we can add whatever duration we want using this plus function. So for example, if I want this token to last for 30 days, I can say 30.days, and just like that, I make this duration 30 days from the current time that we log in at. So I'm going to use that expires at here, and I need to convert that to Java instant, just like that, so I can use it here. And last, of course, we need to sign our token. So I'm going to sign it using the algorithm of HMAC256 and pass our shared secret here, just like that. So just like that, we have our token, and we can now respond with this token here in our request. But just to make things look a little bit better, I'm going to create a specific response for the for this login request, so we can respond to the user with some useful information. So here in the model package, I'm going to create a new Kotlin data class. I'm going to call it login response data class. So we are going to attach a username and a token and the expiration date. So username is a string, token is a string, and expires at is going to be also a string, and annotate this with serializable. And for the expires at, we're going to have a serial name because we don't want to have some camel case in my JSON, just a personal preference. So expires underscore at. So login response just like that, and go back to the user routes. So when we respond, I'm going to remove this simple response and put login response just like that. So username is account request.username, and token is our token, and expires at to local date time and to string. And here we need to pass the time zone. Let me just format this. Okay, so format it. So pass the time zone here. You can say time zone UTC. So before we try, let's protect our endpoint with JWT Authentication. So let's go to fruit routes, and as you can see, the add fruit route is already protected, but we only said that we've only defined the authenticate block here. But since we have two authentication mechanisms now in our server, we have basic and JWT, this block will not know which authentication it should use in this endpoint, and we might actually get a crash if we try to restart the server. So we can actually pass a configuration here to this block. So I'm just going to pass here, which is just a string. I'm just going to say JWT like this. And of course, in my security KT file, if I go here in the JWT block, I need to attach a name to this one. I'm going to call it in JWT, just like that. And one last thing before we actually run the server, I'm going to add a challenge block here to inside the JWT block. So challenge here, basically the challenge block is what we are going to do if the token is not valid, basically. So if the token is not valid, I'm just going to respond to the client, of course say unauthorized, but let's just say, hey, wrong token bro, and restart our server. Let's go to Postman, and I'm going to log in. So log in with his credentials, the correct ones. And as you can see, we have some response here. So we have the username, the token, and then when this token is going to expire, basically, which is really helpful information. So now I'm going to copy this token, and I'm going to go to the add fruit endpoint. And as you can see, this endpoint is still using basic authentication, as you can see here, which we used the last time. And if we try to use it here, it's going to say, hey, wrong token bro, because we've defined that this endpoint will be protected by JWT authentication and not basic authentication. So let's change this from basic auth to beer token here, and then basically paste our token that we've got from the login response, and make the request again, and it failed. Okay, so after a lot of debugging, I finally found out what's wrong here. So I did a big mistake here with my setup when I tried to pull out the properties for my JWT token. So I should not use this toString. I should use getString, just like that, for each one of these. And also in user routes, all of these should also be getString like this. And now if we restart, everything should be good. So let's go back to Postman here, and let's try to add a fruit, and it should be added successfully, as we can see here. But one thing to note is that the added by is unknown in this case, which means if we go back to IntelliJ to fruit routes, here where we try to read the name, if it's null, we attach unknown to the value, which means that this returned null. So because we use JWT auth, we don't have this user ID principal anymore. we should use JWT principal instead, and we don't have this .name. We should instead say get, and here pass the name of the claim that we want to get, which is the username as we defined it when we first created the token. So you say username here, and yes, we can restart. And let's try to add the same one again. And as you can see here, it's attached our name that we've used to generate the token. Another good thing to do is to put our secret, our shared secret, in an environment variable instead of hard coding it, as you can see like this here. So instead of hard coding it, it's a good idea to put it in an environment variable. Also, if you're using a private and public key pairs, so it's good to store your secrets in general in the environment variables, but not hard code them like this. So when you end up pushing your code to GitHub or sharing your code, you don't accidentally leak your secrets. So to do that, we can easily add an environment variable by going to the three dots here and choose edit under configuration. And here, as you can see, we have environment variables. You can specify them directly here, but I like to expand this by clicking this button, which will show up this window. And here I can click the plus to add a new environment variable. So I can say, if, for example, I can call this JWT secret, and the value can be anything. For example, just like that, and hit OK. OK. And now in our config file, we can simply, instead of this, we can put a $sign and then pass the environment variable like this. And this will mean that our server is going to read the value of this environment variable at runtime. Yeah, so that was it for this tutorial. Hope you find this useful. So if you have any question, if you have something you're curious about, let me know in the comments. Appreciate your likes, your comments. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next tutorial.